The stars stretched out before them in a vast and uncharted sea. The galaxy, with its shimmering nebulas and distant suns, was a place of infinite possibility and danger. Humanity, a mere speck in the cosmic void, had only recently found its place among the many alien civilizations that spanned the galaxy. Despite their youth in the stars, humans had quickly proven themselves indispensable, resourceful, adaptive, and fiercely determined. Their technology, though not as advanced as some, was quick to evolve, and their ingenuity had earned them the respect of even the most ancient species. Yet despite their rise, Earth remained a small, almost irrelevant dot on the galactic map. The galaxy's heart pulsed with the rhythm of Zelthium, an energy source so potent it powered ships, cities, and entire star systems. Its discovery had reshaped the galactic economy, and every race in the galaxy coveted it. But in the shadows of this glowing prosperity, greed thrived, and the corporations that controlled the Zelthium reserves held the galaxy's fate in their hands. Adam Masters was no stranger to this struggle. He was a mechanic, a man known throughout the galaxy not for his ability to fix ships, but for the fire that burned in him, a fire born from loss and betrayal. The corporations had taken everything from him. His brother Daniel had died in a mining accident, one that could have been avoided if the companies had given a damn about the lives they were exploiting. Adam's bitterness and his refusal to accept the hollow justifications of the corporations had shaped his every move since that fateful day. He wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. His rage had become his weapon. Every wrench, every tool, every piece of scrap he touched reminded him of his failure to stop what had happened to Daniel. His path had narrowed, consumed by the need for revenge. His reputation, spite as it was known across the galaxy, was earned by his unyielding refusal to let the corporations off the hook. His reputation was built on his unrelenting nature, his refusal to take the easy way out, and his ability to tear apart anyone who stood in his way, especially those who ran the galactic trade of Zelthium. His hands were stained, his heart hardened, and every new ship he repaired only fueled his obsession with bringing down the powers that had claimed his family. Yet despite the burning rage, he was not alone in this battle. Tessa Solari had joined him in his crusade, a practical engineer with a mind that could see beyond the chaos and into the heart of a problem. Unlike Adam, Tessa was calm, collected, and calculated. She'd seen firsthand the devastation caused by the corporations, but unlike Adam, she hadn't allowed it to consume her. She understood the stakes of the conflict, understood the need to strike back, but she also knew that there were other ways to bring about change. Tessa wasn't as driven by revenge. She was driven by the desire to build a future, not destroy everything in her path. Together they were an unlikely pair, a man consumed by his anger and a woman whose balance offered a beacon of hope in the chaos. They were more than just allies. In many ways they had become each other's anchor in the storm that was the galaxy Zelthium, the elusive and volatile energy source that powered their ships and their technologies was a blessing and a curse. The mining of it had become the lifeblood of galactic trade. It was the key to unlocking faster-than-light travel, the engine of entire civilizations. Yet it was also dangerous, volatile, unstable, and prone to catastrophic failure. The corporations had grown rich off the backs of workers who toiled in the deepest parts of dangerous mining operations. They didn't care about the lives lost, the colonies destroyed, or the planets sacrificed in the name of profit. Zelthium could power entire fleets, but it could also destroy them in an instant if misused. The corporations, with their fleets of starships and private armies, had made sure they controlled the flow of it, while entire star systems suffered in silence. As the last of the reserves began to dwindle, the stakes grew higher, and the corporate giants knew it. Power, once easily obtained, was now slipping through their fingers, and they would do anything to ensure they remained on top. Adam's journey was about more than just revenge. It was about seeing his brother's death avenged, about showing the corporations that no one could exploit humanity without consequences. His anger had fueled his every action, driving him to steal, to sabotage, and to confront the corporate giants. He thought it would be enough. He thought if he tore down the men who took everything from him, he would find peace. But as the crisis deepened, Adam began to realize something he hadn't considered. His anger alone wasn't enough to rebuild the world he wanted. The corporations were merely a symptom of a much larger issue. The very system that allowed such abuse to thrive needed to change. His brother's death, tragic as it was, had opened his eyes to a harsh reality that no amount of vengeance could fix a broken system. The personal stakes had grown into something far greater, and Adam now faced the true cost of his actions. And then came the quiet. For a brief moment, everything seemed to slow, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The stars, once so full of promise and wonder, now seemed distant and cold. The war was still raging, but Adam and Tessa had found a fleeting moment of peace, helping those who had been caught in the crossfire of the galactic unrest. Yet, even as they sought to rebuild, the galaxy itself was on the verge of something much greater, something none of them could predict. The corporations, desperate and cornered, were preparing for a final move that would shift the balance of power forever. Adam and Tessa were about to find themselves once again caught in a storm far larger than they had ever imagined. As they looked toward the future, a mysterious figure reached out to them, hinting at a larger event set in motion by their actions, an event that would change everything. The galaxy, it seemed, would no longer be run by energy alone. It was the spite in a human heart that would ignite the flames of the next great war. And this time, Adam would have to choose whether his heart would lead them to victory or to ruin. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, a swirling mass of stars and dark spaces. In the vastness, Earth was but a faint speck, struggling to find its place among the towering civilizations of the cosmos. Humanity had only recently broken free of its homeworld's boundaries, but it was already playing a pivotal role in the Galactic Alliance. Alien species of immense power and intellect viewed Earth's involvement with a mixture of intrigue and condescension. The true power of the galaxy, however, lay in Zelthium, a rare and volatile energy source capable of powering starships, cities, and technologies far beyond human comprehension. Every faction in the galaxy sought it, and the corporations had monopolized its mining. Adam Masters knew this all too well. The death of his brother in a mining accident had fueled a burning desire for revenge, and as the corporations tightened their grip, Adam saw a chance to strike back. That was when Commander Verak, a figure shrouded in mystery, offered him an opportunity. The rebellion had a plan: steal a starship powered by an experimental Zelthium engine. It was humanity's chance to upset the balance of power, to fight back against the greed that had cost Adam everything. His anger flared as he imagined the corporate magnates writhing in the wake of their defeat, but a deep, unsettling fear lurked in his heart. What if this was the final gambit in a much larger, darker game? Still, it was the one opportunity Adam had been waiting for. The risk was enormous, but the rewards were too tempting to ignore. Tessa Solari, an engineer with a level head and a heart of gold, didn't share Adam's hunger for vengeance. She had seen firsthand the damage done by the corporations, but her motivations were grounded in pragmatism. She wanted to stop the exploitation of Zelthium, yes, but her goal was to do so in a way that would save as many lives as possible. When Adam first told her about the mission, she hesitated. It wasn't just the dangers that made her reluctant, but the recklessness of it all. Adam's rage had become a wildfire, consuming everything in its path. She understood the need for justice, but she feared the cost of it. Still, she knew that the galaxy was teetering on the edge of a crisis. The plan was dangerous, perhaps even mad, but sometimes one had to take impossible risks for a greater good. Adam's pain was raw, and his resolve unyielding, but Tessa recognized that this mission could either tip the galaxy into chaos or pull it back from the brink. With a reluctant sigh, she agreed to join him. It wasn't just because she trusted him, it was because the alternative, leaving the galaxy in the hands of the corporations, was far worse. The facility was a fortress, hidden deep within a desolate asteroid field, its exterior a cold grey slab of metal and shimmering shields. Adam and Tessa approached in silence, their hearts pounding in their chests as they prepared for the heist of their lives. Every inch of the compound was protected by cutting-edge security systems, laser grids, biometric scanners, and AI-driven surveillance that could detect the slightest irregularity in their movements. The stars outside seemed so far away, as though the entire galaxy itself was watching. Tessa's fingers danced over the control panel, her brow furrowed in concentration as she worked to hack the security systems. "We don't have much time," she whispered. Adam's eyes were scanning the hallways, his mind already racing through the dozens of possible scenarios that could unfold. His anger pushed him forward, each step more reckless than the last, but Tessa, ever the voice of reason, held him back. "We're not here to start a war, Adam. If we go in guns blazing, we won't make it out." Despite her calm, Adam could feel the tension between them building. He wanted to break in, smash through the defenses, and take what was rightfully his, but he knew Tessa's approach was smarter. They would have to move like shadows, like ghosts, slipping past the high-tech defenses without a trace. The tension was palpable. With each click of the hacking interface, the facility's security systems began to crumble. Their hearts raced as they slipped deeper into the heart of the enemy's domain. Finally, they reached their goal. The Starship, an experimental ship powered by Zelthium, stood before them, glowing faintly in the dim light of the hangar bay. But as they approached, something was wrong. The ship was locked in place, its systems protected by layers of encryption. And that's when they discovered the truth. The corporations weren't just mining Zelthium for energy, they were weaponizing. The ship wasn't just a vehicle, it was a weapon, capable of destroying entire planets. The chilling realization hit Adam like a punch to the gut. His anger had blinded him to the true stakes of this mission. The rebellion was right. They couldn't let this technology fall into the wrong hands, but was stealing it. Really the answer. If they succeeded, they might just set in motion the destruction of the galaxy itself. Tessa's voice broke through the silence, her eyes wide with shock. "We can't let them use this," she said, her voice trembling. Adam's fists clenched. What had he gotten them into? He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This was no longer just about his brother's death. This was about the survival of entire worlds. They had come this far, and there was no turning back. Now, they breached the final defenses, and the moment Adam touched the ship's controls, a surge of energy coursed through the room. It was exhilarating, until the alarms blared. "They're coming," Tessa said, her voice cold and sharp. The mercenaries were here. Adam's mind raced. His impulse was to fight, to defend their prize, but he knew the ship's systems were fragile. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Tessa quickly took control of the ship's interface, her fingers flying over the alien technology that hummed beneath them. It was beautiful in its complexity, but it made their escape even more perilous. Adam gritted his teeth, his rage simmering beneath the surface. He had always acted on impulse, but this time he had to stay calm. The mercenaries were closing in fast, their ships flooding the hangar bay. "We have to move, now!" Tessa shouted. With a violent jolt, the starship lifted off the ground, its engines roaring to life. But just as they thought they were free, a dozen ships surrounded them. Adam's heart pounded as the ship weaved and dodged, narrowly avoiding blasts from the enemy. He had always been driven by spite, and now it was all that kept him going. The ship's systems were failing, but his determination was unwavering. "We're not dying here," he muttered to himself, refusing to back down. The mercenaries' ships closed in, their weapons locked on the starship. Then, out of nowhere, Tessa took control. Her calm, precise movements shifted the ship's course, and with one final maneuver, they plunged into a nearby asteroid field. The mercenaries followed, but the chaos of the asteroids provided just enough cover for them to make their escape. The tension in Adam's chest began to ease, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The cold void of space stretched before Adam and Tessa like an endless ocean, the stars their only guide through the cosmic expanse. A stolen starship, powered by experimental zelthium, hummed beneath their feet, the hum of its engines a constant reminder that they were on borrowed time. They were not only escaping the corporate forces, but a ruthless faction of pirates had also set their sights on the prize, the starship itself. It was a race against everything, the pursuit unrelenting and the stakes rising higher with each passing moment. Adam's grip tightened on the control panel, eyes darting from the starboard to the sensors. The pirates' ships, chaotic, unpredictable, flanked, their every move, firing blasts at them from every direction. The corporate fleet, cold and methodical, pursued with machine-like precision, determined to reclaim what was stolen from them. The two forces were a contrast in every sense. The pirates, erratic and dangerous, the corporate fleet, cold and calculating. But both were closing in on them, and the gap was narrowing. Adam's pulse quickened as he jerked the controls, sending the ship into a dizzying roll to avoid another blast. He didn't look at Tessa, he didn't need to. Her quiet presence beside him was a grounding force, but there was little time to think. The ship's advanced capabilities were their only hope now. Stealth systems that made them nearly invisible to sensors, shields that could absorb minor hits. But the pirates were relentless. They had no regard for their own safety. And they kept coming. Even as Adam pushed the ship harder, the energy reserves continued to deplete. They had to get to safety. They had to get to a place where the chase could end. But the energy reserves were failing, the ship's systems blinking in. Warning. Tessa glanced at Adam, her mind already racing through the options. "We can't keep this up for long, Adam. We need to find a recharge point before the engines shut down entirely." Her voice was calm, but Adam could hear the urgency underneath. The pirates were still coming, their ships swarming like angry wasps, and the corporate fleet wasn't far behind. There was a nebula nearby, a dangerous, unpredictable region, but it was their only chance. They could try to use the energy-rich gases within the nebula, but the risk was immense. The stars outside grew distant as Adam made a snap decision, guiding the ship toward the nebula. He had no time to think, no time to consider the dangers that lay ahead. His mind was focused only on the immediate need, survival. "Hold on," he muttered, pushing the ship faster, its engines straining under the pressure. Tessa didn't say a word, but the tension between them was palpable. This was no longer just about survival. It was about holding on to something bigger than either of them. As they entered the nebula's edge, the first signs of danger emerged. Gravitational anomalies swirling, unpredictable energy bursts from the nebula's core. The ship groaned under the strain, and Adam's fingers tightened on the controls. They had no choice now. As the ship plunged deeper into the nebula, Adam's mind continued to race, fueled by something darker than simple. Adrenaline. His anger, the vengeance that had driven him this far, threatened to swallow him whole. The pain of losing his brother to the corporate greed still burned deep inside him, and he was willing to risk everything to see them pay. The ship's instability, the crackling tension in the air, all of it felt like a mirror to the chaos within him. Tessa's voice broke through his thoughts, steady as ever, but with an edge of concern. "We can't keep going like this, Adam. You're too focused on the past. The corporations, they've already taken so much, but you can't let them take you, too." Her words struck deep. Adam's jaw clenched. He didn't want to hear it, not now, not when they were so close. "I'm not stopping until they pay," he growled, his grip tightening further. But deep down, in a part of him he rarely acknowledged, doubt crept in. Was he pushing too far? Was his anger really enough to justify this madness? He didn't have the answers, but Tessa's calm was the only thing keeping him tethered to the present. Despite the dangerous flight through the nebula, Adam and Tessa had found an uneasy alliance in their mission. They had each other's strengths, Adam's fire and determination, Tessa's intellect and level-headedness, but even that balance couldn't stave off the rising conflict between them. They had no choice but to trust each other, even as they approached a point of no return. Their only hope lay in reaching a hidden outpost on an uncharted planet, a place the pirates and corporations wouldn't expect them to go. It was their last chance to recharge the ship and escape, but it came with a price. The planet's atmosphere was volatile, full of radiation storms, and the outpost itself was hardly a safe haven. It was their only shot, though, and as the ship hurtled toward the unknown, the stakes grew higher. Adam's pulse raced, but Tessa's voice remained steady. "We don't have time for hesitation. You'll need to trust me now, Adam. If we don't reach that outpost, we're done for." Her words were a wake-up call. Adam couldn't afford to let his emotions drive him further. The galaxy was watching, and if they didn't pull together, everything they had fought for would be lost. The energy reserves dwindled faster than expected as they neared the planet, and Adam's frustration mounted. He wanted to act. He wanted to charge in, take control. But Tessa's calm approach kept pulling him back. "You're going to get us both killed if you don't think this through," she snapped as another energy surge threatened to cripple their systems. But Adam's rage flared and the recklessness took over. His decision was swift. He aimed the ship at the heart of a violent radiation storm, thinking they could use its interference to shake off their pursuers. Tessa's voice was filled with panic. "You can't! Adam, don't!" But it was too late. The ship entered the storm, shaking violently as the radiation wreaked havoc on its systems. Adam's hand tightened on the controls, but as the storm surrounded them, it wasn't the fear of death that gripped him. It was the realization that he had gone too far. He couldn't back down now, but he knew that his actions had placed them both in grave danger. The tension was palpable, and in that moment, Adam had to decide. Was his anger worth the cost of their survival? Could he control it, or would it destroy everything? Tessa's quick thinking was the only reason they survived. As the ship fought against the storm's forces, she took over the navigation, overriding Adam's reckless command with a calculated maneuver. The storm's intensity ramped up, but she managed to steer them through it, using the ship's energy reserves to protect them. "You can't keep doing this, Adam," she said, her voice firm but filled with concern. "You need to let go of the anger. The galaxy needs you more than your revenge." Adam's chest tightened, his anger shifting into something darker. They were on the verge of losing everything because of him. The realization hit him harder than the storm itself. Tessa had saved them, but the question remained. Would he let go of the past and fight for the future, or would his spite consume him? The galaxy was full of unknowns, and Adam knew now that he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. It was about survival, his, Tessa's, and the galaxy's. The star system ahead was uncharted, its mysteries hidden behind a veil of cosmic anomalies and deadly space hazards. Adam's heart raced as the untested starship surged forward, its engines roaring against the void. This wasn't just any system, it was the last chance to take down the corporations that had corrupted the galaxy's balance. And yet, the very unknowns that made it a perfect hiding place also made it dangerous. The system was filled with unstable planets, rogue asteroids, and volatile energy fields that could tear a ship apart in seconds. But Adam's mind wasn't on the risks. It was on the fleet behind them, closing in fast. His grip tightened on the controls, knuckles white. He could almost feel the corporate ships bearing down on them, their cold, mechanical nature contrasting sharply with the chaotic pursuit of the pirates. They were surrounded. "This is it," Adam muttered, voice tight. "This is where we either end it or we lose everything." Tessa's voice cut through his thoughts. "We can make it through, but we have to be careful. The system is too unpredictable. We can't just barrel through it like you always do." But Adam wasn't listening. His eyes locked on the fleet, his anger surging. The corporate fleet's cold pursuit was the culmination of everything that had driven him since his brother's death. The need for revenge, the thirst for justice. This was personal. "They're not going to get away with it," he growled. Tessa's face was calm, but her worry was evident. "Adam, you're letting your anger cloud your judgment. We need to focus." The ship's navigation system pinged with alerts. "Asteroid. Fields ahead." Adam veered sharply, the ship jolting under the pressure of the turn. Behind them, the corporate fleet continued its relentless chase. The air was thick with tension. Every second counted. Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he pushed the ship further into the heart of the uncharted system. There was no turning back now. As they neared the edge of the asteroid field, the inevitable happened. The corporate fleet launched its attack. A barrage of laser fire lit up the darkness of space, the blasts echoing against the ship's shields. Adam yanked the controls, sending them into evasive maneuvers. The ship shook as weapons fire slammed into the hull. "Hang on!" Adam shouted, his voice a mix of fury and adrenaline. The ship rocked again, and the view outside was filled with flashes of light and violent energy. "We can't keep this up," Tessa warned, her voice strained. "The shields are depleting faster than we can recharge them." Adam slammed a fist against the console, his mind clouded with anger and desperation. "Keep going! We're not stopping until they're gone." He couldn't stop now, not when everything he'd fought for was so close. The ship's energy reserves dwindled, and Adam's mind raced. The corporate fleet wasn't the only threat. The pirates, unpredictable and relentless, closed in from every direction. Adam's focus shifted between his mission to destroy the fleet and the need to keep the ship intact. The two opposing forces, corporations and pirates, came at them from both sides, their weapons firing without mercy. His hands trembled as he pushed the ship beyond its limits, the advanced technology groaning under the strain. But the reserves were running low, and every action brought them closer to the brink of collapse. "We need a plan," Tessa said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We can't keep this up forever." But Adam wasn't thinking clearly. His anger was driving him forward. The thought of losing to the very people who had taken everything from him, who had caused the death of his brother, was unbearable. His mind focused on one thing: revenge. "We end this now," he growled. Tessa's voice, calm but firm, reached him again. "No, Adam. This isn't about revenge anymore. We need to think. If we don't make it through, all of this will have been for nothing." She was right. As much as Adam wanted to destroy the corporations, as much as his heart screamed for vengeance, the mission was bigger than his pain. They were running out of time, and if they didn't act carefully, they would lose everything, not just their lives, but the chance to change the galaxy. The next few moments were a blur of panic and adrenaline. The corporate fleet and pirates clashed in space around them, the starship caught in the crossfire. Adam fought back against his instincts, trying to steer them towards safety. "I need an answer, Tessa," he barked. "Where do we go?" Tessa's fingers danced across the control panel, calculating a solution. "There's an uncharted planet nearby. We can recharge there, but it's risky. We'll have to navigate through a nebula, and the pirates will follow. It's our only shot." Adam's anger flared again. "Fine," he snapped. "Then we'll take it." As they approached the nebula, the starship systems screamed warnings. Adam's hands gripped the controls, sweat beading on his forehead. The nebula was a swirling mass of energy and radiation, a treacherous path through which they could escape or be torn apart. Suddenly, Adam's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Tessa, calm but filled with urgency. "The energy reserves are almost gone, Adam. We need to make it to that planet now, or we'll be stranded in the void." The tension in the air thickened. Every decision carried weight now. They couldn't afford another mistake. The starship plunged into the nebula, dodging the intense energy surges that threatened to disable them. The ship's systems strained against the immense forces, but Adam's resolve was unshaken. Tessa guided him through the chaos, her voice steady despite the danger. "Focus, Adam. We're almost there." Then came the decision. Adam had two choices. Use the last of the Zelthium to destroy the corporate fleet and risk everything, or conserve the energy and hope for a chance at survival. "We don't have time to hesitate," Adam said, his voice trembling with the weight of his anger. "We destroy them now." But Tessa wasn't so sure. "If you do this, we're done for. The ship won't survive it, and neither will we." Her voice cracked, but she was resolute. "You need to think. This isn't just about revenge." The seconds ticked away. Adam's fingers hovered over the controls, his breath coming in quick bursts. His mind was clouded with rage, and every fiber of his being screamed for vengeance. But then, in the silence of that moment, something inside him shifted. His rage had brought him this far, but would it be enough to save them? Tessa's calm voice broke through again, urging him to reconsider, and just as Adam was about to make the fatal decision, Tessa took control. She silently rerouted the Zelthium energy into the starship's defensive shields. In an instant, the shields activated, absorbing the enemy's attacks. The corporate fleet's weapons bounced harmlessly off the barrier, and the pirates, confused and disoriented, faltered in their pursuit. Adam's breath caught in his throat. "You!" He turned to Tessa, his face a mix of surprise and admiration. Tessa didn't meet his gaze. Instead, she simply said, "We survive, Adam. That's all that matters." And in that moment, Adam realized the depth of her intelligence and the true value of her calm. She had saved them both, and perhaps, in doing so, had saved him from the destruction he'd been chasing all along. As the dust settled and the immediate threat was neutralized, Adam and Tessa faced the unexpected truth. Commander Verak, the leader of the rebellion, had hidden his true intentions. They were pawns in a much larger game, one where the rebellion sought to control the Zelthium reserves for themselves, not free the galaxy from corporate tyranny. Adam and Tessa were left with no choice but to betray Verak, sabotaging the starship's critical systems to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. The confrontation was brief but intense, a rush of emotions and adrenaline as Adam and Tessa fought to make the right choice. Verak's anger was palpable, his betrayal cutting deep. "You've made a grave mistake," he spat. But Adam and Tessa stood firm. They knew that sometimes doing the right thing meant walking away from the very people who claimed to be allies. The escape was filled with desperation, but they had no time for regrets. Their actions would echo across the galaxy, and they knew the consequences would be far-reaching. Victory came at a heavy cost. Adam and Tessa, their bond forged in the crucible of betrayal and uncertainty, now stood at the precipice of a new chapter. The rebellion was in disarray, the corporations still held power, and the galaxy was as fractured as ever. But Adam had learned a valuable lesson. Revenge was a path that led only to destruction. Tessa had shown him that there was a way to fight for something bigger, something lasting. The fight wasn't over. But now, with Tessa by his side, Adam knew that they had a chance, and that was worth more than all the vengeance in the universe. The aftermath of the battle was a hollow victory. The corporate forces had been disabled, their ships drifting silently in the dark expanse of space, but Adam and Tessa knew this was only a temporary setback. The galaxy was in chaos, its political landscape shattered by the events they had set into motion. The rebellion was fractured, its leadership disoriented, and the corporations, though wounded, remained a powerful force. The power vacuum left in the wake of their success had created new alliances, some forged in desperation, others built on shared ambition. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of something even more volatile. Adam's mind raced as he watched. The stars outside their ship, a grim reminder that the fight was far from over. Despite their personal victory, the larger war raged on. The disruption they had caused was only a spark in the vast universe, but it had lit a fire. The truth was undeniable. Ordinary humans, driven by anger, grief, and resilience, had managed to carve a path through a galaxy ruled by the mighty. But now, Adam and Tessa had to face the reality that their actions were only the beginning. The galaxy would continue to shift, and it would demand more of them than they had ever imagined. Adam sat in silence, the weight of the journey pressing down on him. His mind drifted back to the beginning, the mission, the rage, the need for vengeance. His brother's death had driven him, turned him into something he hadn't fully recognized. He had thought revenge would bring closure, but now, as he sat in the quiet of the ship, he realized that vengeance had been a mask, hiding the truth. What he had done was necessary, yes, but it was not the end. His anger, the fuel for every action he had taken, had almost consumed him. The corporations had done enough damage, but Adam's pursuit of revenge had threatened to destroy not only them, but the galaxy itself. Now, staring at the cold, distant stars, Adam finally understood what had been missing from his mission. He hadn't been fighting for justice. He had been fighting for something far more dangerous, his own anger. The galaxy needed more than his rage. It needed peace, real change, and Adam knew he couldn't build that with spite alone. He had learned a painful truth. Justice was about more than destroying your enemies. It was about rebuilding what had been broken. Tessa's quiet presence beside him was a comfort, though she had her own battles to fight. She had never allowed the chaos of the war to cloud her judgment, and now her calm demeanor seemed even more vital. It had been her steady hand that had guided them through moments of crisis, her voice the tether that had pulled Adam back when his emotions threatened to tear them apart. Tessa had never shared Adam's thirst for vengeance, yet she had seen the devastation caused by the corporations. Her pragmatism had been the key to their survival. She hadn't just saved him from himself, she had given him a new perspective, one that balanced his need for justice with the reality of their situation. Adam had come to realize that the fight for a better galaxy wasn't about punishing the guilty. It was about forging a new path forward. Without Tessa, he might have lost himself entirely in his own wrath. Together, they had done more than survive the war. They had changed its course. And now, as the galaxy reeled from their actions, Adam and Tessa would have to find a way to carry the burden of their choices. Adam turned toward Tessa, his eyes meeting hers for the first time in what felt like an eternity. "We can't go back," he said quietly, almost as if testing the weight of his own words. She nodded, her expression solemn. "No, we can only move forward." Her words were simple, but they carried a depth of understanding that Adam had come to rely on. They had been through hell together, and now, as the galaxy seemed to tear itself apart, they had to decide what their next move would be. The war they had fought was far from over, but the galaxy's future no longer depended on their desire for revenge. It depended on their ability to heal, to adapt, and to rebuild what they had broken. Their choice was made, though it wasn't an easy one. Adam and Tessa decided to leave the heart of the chaos behind, seeking refuge in the vast, unexplored regions of space. It wasn't escape, it was survival. The galaxy needed time to recover, and so did they. Their mission had been completed, but the wounds of war would take much longer to heal. They could only hope that, by stepping back, they would allow the forces of change to settle into place. The universe was filled with untold dangers, and though they had won this battle, Adam and Tessa knew that the real fight was just beginning. But for now, they needed time to breathe, to heal, and to prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. They sought a peaceful planet, far from the factions that had torn the galaxy apart, where they could begin again, slowly, cautiously. Their decision wasn't a surrender, it was a necessary pause. They had fought for a better future, and now they had to make sure they were strong enough to build it. The galaxy was still in turmoil, its future uncertain. The corporations, though temporarily disabled, still held much of the galaxy in their grasp. The rebellion, fractured and in disarray, lacked leadership. Adam and Tessa's actions had created a ripple, but the consequences were far from clear. They had done what they could, but the road to peace was long and treacherous. Adam thought of the corporations, their control over the galaxy's resources, their stranglehold on countless lives. It was a fight that would continue, but the victory they had secured was something far greater than a single battle. Their actions had proven that humanity, ordinary humans, without vast fleets or immense power, could make a difference in the cosmic struggle. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity had shown that it could change the course of history. But the galaxy's future was still fragile. The rebellion's goals were unclear, and the balance of power was in constant flux. There would be no easy solutions, no quick victories. The battle for a better galaxy would continue, but Adam and Tessa had ignited hope where there had been none. Their journey wasn't over, it was only beginning. As they looked toward the stars, the weight of their choices settled in. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and uncertainty. But together they had proven that, even in the darkest of times, humanity could rise above. And in that truth lay the hope for a better future. The hum of the starships' engines was a constant, soothing reminder that for once Adam and Tessa had a moment of peace. The chaos of the galaxy, the wars, the betrayals, and the endless pursuit of power seemed so distant now. They had seen the depths of destruction and the fragility of life, and yet here they were, standing on the precipice of something new. Tessa stood near the viewport, gazing out at the stars, the soft glow of the distant suns illuminating her features. Adam, sitting in the cockpit, couldn't help but feel a weight lifted from his shoulders. The galaxy still spun with uncertainty, but for a brief moment they were free from the chaos they had set in motion. They were no longer warriors. They were survivors, healers in their own way. Helping the ones who had been torn apart by the conflict was their new purpose. Adam couldn't deny the sense of peace that settled within him. He had spent so long chasing vengeance, letting his anger define him, but now he saw the truth. There was more to life than that, more than fighting and seeking revenge. There was hope in rebuilding, in offering something to those who had been left broken. It wasn't easy, and the scars of their past would never fade, but Adam knew that they were doing something important now. Humanity's resilience, the ability to adapt and rebuild, was something he had always underestimated. Even in a galaxy torn apart by war, people could still find ways to heal, to move forward. And Adam had to believe that this was just the beginning. Before they could settle into their new life, however, their moment of peace was shattered. The quiet hum of the ship was interrupted by a sudden, cryptic message. A voice, distorted and unknown, crackled through the communication system. "Your actions have not gone unnoticed." Adam's fingers hovered over the controls, his heart pounding in his chest. Tessa turned to face him, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. The message continued, the voice never revealing its source. "The galaxy you have altered is now on a path far more dangerous than you realize. Your choices have triggered forces that will change everything." The voice cut off abruptly, leaving them in silence. Adam's mind raced. He had expected repercussions, but this felt different. This wasn't just some random threat, it was a warning. The cosmic balance they had so desperately tried to tip had now set something else in motion, something much bigger. Tessa glanced at Adam, her calm exterior belying the tension in the air. "Do you think it's real?" she asked. Adam clenched his jaw, his thoughts already spiraling. "If it is, we're about to find out." The days that followed only deepened the mystery. Adam and Tessa continued their journey, helping those who had been displaced by the war, but their thoughts remained on the message. Whoever had contacted them seemed to understand the gravity of their actions. As they traveled further into uncharted space, they began to notice subtle changes in the galaxy. New factions were rising. Some claimed to be allies, but their motives were unclear. Others, long thought dormant, were beginning to stir, their movements growing more organized. The rebellion, once a beacon of hope, was now splintering, its internal strife threatening to tear it apart. But it wasn't just the rebellion's collapse that troubled them. In the farthest reaches of space, something else was awakening. A force that Adam and Tessa had no understanding of, but one they had somehow set in motion. The ripples of their choices were far more profound than they had ever anticipated. Adam couldn't help but wonder, had they just started something they couldn't control? Could they have known how deeply their actions would reach, how far the consequences would spread? It was a sobering thought. The galaxy was far from stable, and Adam and Tessa were no longer just fighting for their survival. They were fighting for the future of everything they had fought to protect.